Welcome everybody to the Quest Center in New Bedford. My name is Derek Santos. I'm the director at the New Bedford Economic Development Council. We live in this building. We manage the incubator program for the city that takes part in part of this building, mostly on the second floor and first floor at the moment. Soon, very soon, to be the third floor. And before I ask the mayor to come up for his remarks and get the program started, this all started in 1899. This was the New Bedford Textile School, teaching people how to use the most innovative equipment that ever existed for the industrial mills of New Bedford, right? When that was the absolute greatest technology and the greatest equipment, and you learned how to do it right here in New Bedford. Technology may change over time, but innovation and the need to have that type of skills, those type of knowledge, those type of companies working together, gathering together, does not. The city took on this project in 2004. Originally, it's been more than 20 years since its first renovation. And like anything else, after 20 years, you need to do some stuff, right? So from this perspective of the EDC and the folks at Groundwork and DATMA and all the other folks who are members and tenants of this building that come to use this space, I got to tell you, we're grateful to the Mitchell administration and the other folks that we work with in the city and even on the city council to make investments back in infrastructure that supports private sector growth, development, and innovation. That's a big deal. It's not always sexy. Replacing HVAC units, that's a lot of it you're not going to see, isn't the biggest headline grabber. But these are the things you need to do to have facilities not just work top notch, but be the type of facilities where people want to come and spend time with. And the last thing I'll say is that this is a neighborhood that we're really excited about being a part of. Our friend Mark Parsons is our neighbor right next door, New Bedford Robotics. The pedestrian bridge to commuter rail right across the street is just about to be done. What we like to call is a wonderful public arts project that happens to allow you to cross a highway if you're a person. And we know the city has plans for a parking deck across the street that's going to support housing and other stuff in this district. So this is a great neighborhood to be in. We're thankful to run this program for the city. We're excited about doing that. We're really thankful that we get to work with partners like Vineyard Wind, big part of this. I'll leave all that great stuff for the mayor. But we're used to working in partnerships, even when it's super complex. Believe me, this project has been. But we're ready to get started, and we could not be more excited about today. With that, Mayor Jon Mitchell.
All right. Morning or good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see everyone here. You know, we're about to talk about a major renovation of this place, and I haven't been up here in years. I have to say, Derek, it's not that bad. It's not to say we want to send the money back or anything, but it is going to look much, much better than it does now for a lot of the reasons that Derek just touched upon. I'd like to sort of just start with a little bit of context. You know, with all the work that we do in economic development, it all sort of comes back down to this central goal, which is to create opportunity for our residents. When I got into office, the unemployment rate was about 13%, and it's very different now for lots of reasons, some that we've had a direct effect on, thanks to the great work of the EDC. Tony Sapienza, our chair, Derek, of course, our executive director, and the whole team here, the Port of New Bedford as well. But we don't, for one thing, we've lived here for a long time, understand, have experienced the ebbs and flows of an economy in an older industrial city in which the unemployment rate goes up, it comes down, and so what we want to do is to make sure that we're on a steady trajectory of growth over years and years, so people don't feel the disruption of unemployment and all that follows from that, but also to know that we're a place on the rise. And how do you do that? You have to remain competitive. And in a world that is changing all the time, a world that is competitive in an instant, with new technologies emerging all the time, new sectors being created all the time. You have to be nimble. You have to take advantage of what you have. And so what we in New Bedford do is we play our cards. We have a number of really strong cards in our deck, and we make the most of them. And one of the things that we've been focused on, and this won't be news to anybody here, is that we focus on what we do out on the water. What we do out in the water is why New Bedford exists as a city. Frankly, it's why this entire region of southeastern Massachusetts is not simply farmland. The city that grew up here grew up out of a maritime business, and it continues today to thrive based on the work that's done on the water, and it will continue in the future to do that. But we can't just assume that things are just going to happen just automatically, like manna from heaven. We have to be intentional about our work. And so that's why we're here today. Intentionality means that we plan, that we understand our advantages, and that we put our shoulder all together, all of us, behind them. And so in the last several years, you've seen this massive build out of port infrastructure for all of our maritime industries, but in anticipation of the arrival of offshore wind. That has been happening. Some $1.2 billion worth of a pipeline now that we're in the middle of, which represents more port infrastructure build out than we've seen since New Bedford was the center of the world's whaling industry. We're in an auspicious time right now, but we are here because we're determined that this city will thrive in the long run because we're oriented toward competition. We plan, we think through problems, and we execute. And so there are many facets to the maritime sector, to offshore wind, in particular today. And in order to be competitive, it isn't enough just to have appropriate infrastructure. It is fundamental to any maritime business, but it's not sufficient. So what we've done is we've worked very hard with so many partners in this room to ensure that those other facets, those other things that we have to do well, are in place. The National Offshore Wind Center, for instance, down on Herman Melville. We still haven't cut the ribbon on that thing officially, even though everybody knows it's there, and if lots of people here have had tours. But it's the first of in this country training center for offshore wind technicians, and that's part of it. Workforce. The establishment of the New Bedford Ocean Cluster, which facilitates business-to-business work. You'll hear from its executive director, Jen Downing, in a few minutes, is there to facilitate connections and to promote New Bedford to all the relevant industries, all those industries that could take advantage of what we have to offer. So that is a big part of what we do. Innovation is a big part of what we must be able to do, because all these industries, offshore wind, like fishing, like other maritime industries, evolve, and new technological applications become relevant all the time. We have to be there as they develop. We heard recently that the Mass Clean Energy Center is establishing an innovation center on our waterfront in collaboration with the city and the Port Authority. That's another facet. So in that context, we are here today to talk about yet another major facet. So one of the problems that the nature of the offshore wind industry is such that it is at times itinerant. It is an industry that often, for many of its players, go from project to project. And in Europe, they go from country to country to facilitate projects. And you've seen it here, the marshaling of the Vineyard wind project on our waterfront will play out over the next, I don't know, Klaus, I don't mean to rush you, but you guys are welcome to stay for as long as you like. But at some point, the marshaling phase will end, and then the next project will come along. And so there's a mobilization and demobilization that is inherent in the marshaling dimension of the industry. And so what that marshaling entails, it's almost like a circus, right? People just sort of muster around the thing, and then they go to the next place and the next place. There are obviously other facets of the industry. Operations and maintenance will likely in the long run be the bread and butter here in New Bedford, but we're also a marshaling port. And so as a marshaling port, we need to make sure that companies can set up here and do their thing as seamlessly as possible. They can get connected to workforce. They can connect with the building trades, right? They can connect to other businesses on the waterfront and off the waterfront and other business, and they need to be able to do that in a way that's flexible. So we've seen models in Europe. Jen and I have visited some of them where there's a building in the port where businesses sort of just put down their tent pegs and stay under flexible leases. We're in close proximity to others, and they're able to exchange ideas, get connected to the local economy, and do their thing and do it well, and in the process, grow some more jobs. And sometimes they stick around and they themselves grow. We're looking to make New Bedford a place that's really easy to do business, especially in these fields where we have all these advantages. We're going all in on these things. So that's the idea behind this. So that's the challenge, and the opportunity was, here it is, the Quest Center, what has been known as the Quest Center, is a city-owned building. We have flexibility here. We're not driven by profit margins as a municipal government. We're driven by, we seek out the greater good. And so we have, in some respects, procurement laws aside and all that, some greater level of flexibility about what we can offer. The Quest Center for a long time has been the home of the EDC. It is, but not nearly as long, but for a while it has been the home of Groundworks. Sarah Thanis is here from Groundworks, which is a very successful co-working space program downstairs that layered on top of which are a number of entrepreneurship programs, E4All, Enterprise, Mass Business Development, all these things are here. So you got a nice stew of business development activity in this place. So this made sense to do what we had wanted to do here for a long time, which is to create a crash pad of sorts. That's what this third floor is going to be. It is a place where businesses can come in, they can set up shop, they can do their thing in close proximity to others, and then they can be right next door to Jen Downing, who's the sorceress of all these things. She can push and pull, bring all this stuff together on the third floor to make sure that people are securing opportunities here in the city and maybe even growing a little bit here, and then spreading the word, evangelizing New Bedford for everybody else. That's the idea. So you can see how this will all be laid out. It is, as I said, it's not that bad in here, but this is what it's going to look like. As Derek pointed out, you want people to go to a space that is neat, that is bright and airy and welcoming and a place you want to be in. That's what we're trying to create. And so this is what it's all going to look like once construction starts. Some of that construction has already started. So I say I go through all these things because this is sort of Quest Center 2.0. What we are calling it, as you can see up here, is the Quest, New Bedford's Enterprise Hub. It is not an incubator per se. It's different from what the Innovation Center on the waterfront will be, but it'll be for enterprises that are established, enterprises that are new, stuff in between, a place where a lot can happen under very flexible terms in ways that have worked very well in a number of European ports. So that is the idea, what we're doing here. What we're trying to do here is to create the conditions that allow for growth and job creation so our businesses, our residents, everybody all alike can benefit. So that's the idea. That's the announcement. That's the time to clap, Derek. But I had to give you that long wind-up because, like, it's hard to make. It's got to make some sense of all this, right? So let me just say a few things. So here on the third floor, there'll be lots of offices, some convening space, some all kinds of stuff that people want, entertainment space, man caves, all that, right? It's all going to be here, not the man cave part. It will be the home of the New Bedford Ocean Cluster. So you'll hear from Jen in a moment. We're really proud of what Jen has done at the MBOC and her team, and it has really arrived. It is a platform on which we connect maritime businesses across sectors, fishing, offshore wind, tech, other. And we get to be right next door to New Bedford Research and Robotics. Mark Parsons is fit to be tied. He has got that thing up and running, and it is growing and being built into the city's newest business support and tech support institution. So that's right next door. A whole lot of good for the neighborhood, combined with what Mark is doing. This place, as Derek said, the passenger rail station will be right over there. We're building a garage next door. There's housing opportunities. The Armory is right next door. That will likely become housing in the next few years. We got a big MassWorks grant to connect up this part of Purchase Street with the downtown and knit the two together better. All these things are happening. And so these things don't happen on their own, as I said. None of this stuff just sort of happens automatically. I've often been inclined to point out something that Richard Florida observed. Richard Florida is one of sort of the leading observers of the urban scene in America, and he said a few years ago that that what distinguishes successful places from places that are less successful is that those successful places are intentional, right? You just don't leave things to chance. You plan stuff out, you execute, you do it as a team. That's what we do here. And so this is yet another really good example. This is a $3 million build out in an older city building. It is a really important shot in the arm. There are two sources of the funding, half and half, 50-50. The first is the American Rescue Plan. And so the American Rescue Plan we have put to really effective use here in the city. We have taken what I would describe as a transactional approach. We set our priorities. We have places where potential recipients compete for the money, including by ponying up matching funds. And we've been able to see through are seeing through a number of really important projects in housing and daycare and port facilities and a whole lot else in the city. Small businesses, business facade programs, a lot of this stuff. We've been leveraging a lot of dough. So there's that. Now, so the matching, so we appreciate the effort of our federal delegation to pass the American Rescue Plan Act. And I don't know if anybody from Congressman Keating's office is here. I didn't see Liz, but just know that we appreciate that support. So matching that are our friends from Vineyard Wind, who through their Accelerator Fund program are ponying up $1.5 million. And it's the kind of investment that the folks at Vineyard Wind, with whom we've worked so closely over the last several years, know will lead to further investment and more opportunity, and they appreciate that very, very well. They understand that connection as they've seen it and play out in Europe. Klaus in particular has seen this movie before. A lot of times when we talk about offshore wind, the thing to keep in mind is that a lot of it's already happened, right? We don't have to make stuff up. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. A lot of these things have worked in Europe. Their concepts have been proven, and so so maybe we're not original, but we know how to copy well. And so this is another instance of that. But Vineyard Wind, under Klaus's leadership, has understood that very, very well. Along with its partners, CIP. Vineyard Wind, of course, is a joint venture between Copenhagen Investment Partners and Avangrid. And you'll hear from Ken Kimmell, former DEP commissioner, now the head of offshore wind for Avangrid, and we really appreciate his support and his company's support for this effort. I want to thank a couple of other folks, of course, Derek and Tony and Ramon Silva, Deb Trombley from the EDC for all of their work. Derek is right. This is a complicated project. It's not just a simple office build out. There's a lot here, atriums and stuff, but also systems, and dealing with public procurement is almost always complicated, especially when you have these sort of public-private arrangements. Again, I want to thank Jen, also Jon Bullard, former Mayor Jon Bullard, the chair of the Bedford Ocean Cluster, couldn't be here today, but we really appreciate him. Jen Vieira from the Department of Facilities and Fleet Management, also a lot of work by the city to put this all together. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be really cool when we put a big Q on the side of the building, And people are going to say, what's that about? You already had a Z, now you have a Q. So there's going to be a Q for question there, but that'll get people talking, which is what we want. But this will be a place, especially as the neighborhood grows up, where there'll be a whole lot of new activity. And what we want is we want people to have the opportunities to grow a business here, to have a good job, to be able to fend for their family and pursue the American dream. That's the business we are in. So we want to thank our friends from Vineyard Wind, and I want to introduce Klaus Moeller, the CEO, who is advancing now America's first major offshore wind project right off of our coast. We're very proud to be associated with Vineyard Wind in that effort. It's complicated, but Klaus has done a fantastic job making it happen, and Klaus would really appreciate what you guys have done on this particular project. And just ask you to come on up.
So I appreciate the last bit. I'm not sure I appreciate you calling us a traveling circus, but I do think you're right.
You're the ringmaster.
It is true, though, that's how offshore wind is, that we move from project to project, and one of the places we felt most at home is here, and I think it's very much thanks to your leadership, Mayor Mitchell. It's not been an easy ride, and one of the bottlenecks in offshore wind is ports that are ready, not only with the facilities that can actually handle these big components, but also all the infrastructure, the talent, the champions in the administration that can help us with getting this industry kicked off. So I want to thank you a lot. I want to thank NBOC with you in the lead, Jen. Of course, I want to thank my shareholder for always, Avangrid, for always trusting us and letting us do all of this. I am so thrilled about this. I mean, we've talked about how can offshore wind make a permanent mark on New Bedford. After all the things that Mayor Mitchell and his team has done, how can we make sure that it's not just this traveling circus that shows up and then are gone again? And I think one of the things that this milestone, building the Quest, which is a fantastic name, indicates that it's going to be permanent here, right? It's not having meetings in bakeries or wherever we found in the past. It is a permanent thing, and I agree it's going to look great. I actually agree with your comment. It already looks nice, but it's going to be this hub of ideas, innovation, business, commercial discussions that we really need to take this industry forward. My team is known by the slogan of being the forever first team, and that's how it feels like. And we are very proud about building this first of a kind in the U.S. We're gonna deliver power to 400,000 households and businesses when we are done. And a lot of that is going to be right here in New Bedford. So when you use your TV or your coffee maker or whatever, it's going to be this green, clean, safe energy from the ocean that Mayor Mitchell talked about. The ocean that I love so much, that my ancestors for generations has been staring and thinking about how can we use. And I think it's thrilling that we can have this big source. This is the ideal area for offshore wind. It got the right wind level. It's got seabed, which we know well. It got all the resources, all the talent, all the businesses to support it. So this is really an ideal take, and I'm so proud that it now manifests itself in an actual innovation center that can help getting those ideas that will take the industry forward. I think that the terminal is very much one of our proudest areas as well. I mean, when I drive into New Bedford, which I do a lot, I always get so proud when you see. I know other people may not like it, but the big crane, the towers, it's almost like a new skyline of New Bedford, and I hope it sort of sets the future for offshore wind, that we can have this combination of a very visionary administration, the efforts that NBOC puts into it, and really connecting the dots, right? Having this opportunity of an industry that's ready to take off, local businesses that really want to do the work, and education as well, right? We've had offshore wind is new here, but we've had a center here trying to tell people of all the good that we think this does. So I think it's the perfect mix, and I hope this hub will be where that is very, very visual also for future generations. I want to talk a little bit about what we've achieved already, right? So as you all know, we're in construction. So about 100 people goes to the terminal every day, over the week to work on this, right? So we've already got a lot of people, and Mayor Mitchell, he doesn't let me relax. He's made the point many times that I don't want people to come from everywhere else. I want them to be from here. So we are proud to say that we've worked locally with the local the ILA here to have people every day on the terminal. We have local fishing vessels working. We didn't see that in the beginning, actually, how much they could do for us. But the combination of the local knowledge and honestly local network, right? That they know the people we are talking to, and also the hardness. They're used to working at the ocean, but also the fact that we can be that more stable offer of work when it's not season for scallops or whatever that vessel is fishing for. So we've used 57 vessels already locally on the wind farm, and I think that's just the beginning. And I think that's what a center like this can help. That people come to me and they sort of we want to go to New Bedford. How do we do it? Where do we start? And to Mayor Mitchell's point, it really needs to be easy to start businesses. And the way we work today, right? People work remotely, they work from somewhere else, but bringing them together in a very easy setup, I think is going to give that more fluent creativity that the industry and I think the city needs. So I really want to congratulate the city of New Bedford. I want to congratulate NBOC for all of the work put into this. I'm so happy that we can help with our acceleration fund, because this is actually what we wanted to do with those money, right? In the end, we are trying to build a sustainable industry that will hopefully one day make money, but it's also about investing in the local communities, and I think that's exactly what the Acceleration Fund was set out to do. So even though it's right now just your office, I hope it can bring a lot of people here. So I wanna end up by saying that I'm very optimistic about the future of offshore wind. I'm very optimistic about how New Bedford and New Bedford Ocean Cluster have embraced that idea. And remember when we did the job fairs, there was like hundreds of people coming to the job fairs and wanting to work in this industry. And the good news is every day when I meet them, they're actually now in well-paying positions. And I was just told that some of these members who helped from the very beginning can actually afford their own homes now, right? And I think that's what we think about. That's what we want to achieve, that the growth of the offshore wind can be translated to actually a family getting a nice place to live here in New Bedford. So congrats again. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Klaus. So I want to call up one of his shareholders. Joint venturers, and that is Ken Kimmell from Avangrid. And Ken has experience in offshore wind, not just in the private sector, but previously, as I mentioned, in the private sector. Previously in the public sector at Mass DEP, where he was the commissioner during the Patrick administration. But Ken is, wherever he has been a great partner for the city of New Bedford. So Ken, welcome.
Thank you, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. Mayor Mitchell, I have known you for some time when we've had a chance to work together on a lot of things. And one thing I have to say, a consistent theme is you get up every morning fighting for the city, thinking about how you can bring change and economic development to it. And congratulations that you're here to celebrate yet another important milestone. So wonderful leadership from you and your team, and Jen, it's such a pleasure to work with you as well. And obviously, as a shareholder, we are so grateful for Klaus's leadership in bringing Vineyard Wind forward and bringing economic development and everything else that comes with being the nation's first offshore wind farm. So one thing I wanted to point out is eventually the marshaling of Vineyard Wind will come to an end, but the partnership with New Bedford will not. And we're very proud of the next phase of offshore wind, a project that we call New England Wind 1, which got awarded a bid from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in September. And in partnership with the mayor and his team, we've made, it's a very New Bedford-centric project. We will be bringing in as a partner a Danish company called Liftra, which manufactures specialty equipment for offshore wind. So we're bringing now offshore wind manufacturing to New Bedford. They're going to start small, but they have some pretty big ambitions. And I wouldn't be surprised if a substantial amount of manufacturing will happen over the years here in New Bedford. We're also going to do our operation and maintenance hub out of New Bedford. That's important because a lot of the long-term jobs in offshore wind are at the operation and maintenance stage. We'll be doing construction logistics at the Foss Marine Terminal. We will proudly continue to invest in the ocean cluster and in the offshore wind training center. So we consider ourselves long-term partners here with New Bedford. We're excited to play a role in the change and the development and the transition that this great city is undergoing. And like Klaus, I want to say that the future of offshore wind is very bright, and there's a lot to love about it. You can love it because it's a form of clean energy that addresses climate change. You can love it because we are surging in our demand for electricity. As we build data centers and artificial intelligence, we need a lot more power. Or you can love it because we're putting hundreds of thousands of people to work, and it is a little bit of a traveling circus in the sense that these people that are getting trained to work on Vineyard Wind 1, they'll be available to work on New England Wind 1. We signed a project labor agreement similar to the one that Vineyard Wind 1 have. So there are long-term jobs for people. And so the future is very bright. Offshore wind is supplying clean energy and jobs and economic development to communities like New Bedford. And we are very pleased to be part of that. And thank you for your leadership.
All right. Thank you, Ken. So last, I wanted to call to the podium my partner in crime on matters related to offshore wind. That's Jen Downing, who has been the executive director of the New Bedford Ocean Cluster for the last 2 years, and who is the person out there who's evangelizing New Bedford and offshore wind to so many folks. And in Europe and in the US, it is the case where she'll often be at conferences where the only city represented, and this is true in Europe and the US, is New Bedford. This happens, and the more that happens, all the better. We're leading most of the Western world to believe that New Bedford is the only place to do offshore wind, and that's fine. That's just fine with me. But the Ocean Cluster has been a very big success. It was launched a number of years ago by Ed Washburn when he was port director. I was just seeing if you were listening, Ed. And we worked together with Derek to get it off the ground. Jen took the helm about 2 years ago and hasn't looked back. And so it's really making an impact here. And the goal really is to ensure that all the maritime sectors, offshore wind and fishing, tech, everything else, are working together and ensuring that ideas are being exchanged, and that we're all benefiting from the sheer intensity of maritime activity in Bedford. So Jen, thank you very much. Come on up and say a few words. Just tell them about your new home.
Hello. Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to celebrate another significant economic development project in New Bedford, and one that is so important for both the continued growth of the city's blue economy, but also the continued growth of the New Bedford Ocean Cluster. For those that don't know, that MBOC is a nonprofit marine industry association that was created through the combined efforts and vision of the City of New Bedford, the New Bedford Economic Development Council, and the New Bedford Port Authority to drive business development in established and emerging marine industries here in New Bedford. We're modeled after successful organizations in places like Iceland, Denmark, and the UK that have made their fisheries, their energy systems, and ports more profitable and sustainable through the cluster concept. The role of a cluster organization is pretty straightforward, but it is very key to industry growth. Simply, we want to connect people and companies from like sectors and provide the resources necessary so it is easier to do business, get access to resources, and grow. Every successful industry cluster has a clear, game-changing mission. At the MBOC, ours is to make New Bedford the leading ocean economy on the East Coast. We aim to build on our dominance in commercial fishing, lead the way in offshore energy, break ground in marine technology, and make advancements in aquaculture. These four industries and the relationships between them offer enormous potential to create a truly integrated ocean economy and supply chain that can produce thousands of good jobs and new businesses. Our work at the MBOC involves targeted business development, convening our pillar industries to understand their challenges, barriers to growth, and explore opportunities for innovation, and organizing events like our recent offshore wind conference, which attracted 150 industry leaders from the offshore wind sector from around the globe right here in New Bedford to network and examine business trends and best practices. And that was our second annual conference. We've gotten so much great feedback from it. We will be doing a third next year. As we've shared today, this project will include an exciting element, the creation of a dedicated space here on the third floor for maritime businesses. While we've all grown accustomed to working remotely, experienced cluster organizations know that having a physical location, or cluster house, as they call it in Iceland, that provides companies a mutual space to set up shop easily, connect, and plug into the business ecosystem is absolutely essential to the cluster organization's success. And it's been really a missing piece for the MBOC since we got launched a few years ago. With this project, we're not just rebranding and renovating space. We're expanding the city's capacity to respond to the growing demands of maritime businesses and remain competitive in our efforts to be a leading maritime economy. So I'd like to take a moment to express my gratitude on behalf of the MBOC Board of Directors and our member companies, and we have one or two here today, to three key partners that I have the good fortune to work with regularly and have made this project possible. So first, to Vineyard Wind. Your ongoing partnership and generous investments have played a pivotal role in the growth of the MBOC. Your commitment to invest in this facility not only expands upon the city's infrastructure, but it's an excellent example of how public-private partnerships can come together and truly benefit communities. So thank you, Klaus. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Jen Cullen. Dan, where's Dan? Thank you, Dan. Janine. Your team is growing here locally in New Bedford. I would also like to extend my thanks to the mayor and your team, Mayor. Your vision, your dedication, your active support to the New Bedford Ocean Cluster has been absolutely instrumental in making this organization come to life. It's through our collective efforts that our vision to make New Bedford the leading ocean economy on the East Coast will become a reality. And finally, I want to thank Derek Santos at the New Bedford Economic Development Council for your continued support and partnership. We've been working on this idea for a long time, so it's really exciting to see it come to fruition. And I look forward to collaborating with you over the coming months to activate this third floor space so it really becomes a valuable resource for our local business community after Christmas. Sure, that's a deal. So with that, I will hand it back to the mayor for closing remarks, but thanks again, everybody.
So we'll get underway with the work soon enough to build this out, but we're really excited about it. And I think you guys are moving in fairly soon, right? You've already moved in. Like I'm already I'm still measuring for drapes and yeah. But listen, we're really excited about one more. As I said earlier, it's one more facet of our work to grow New Bedford into a thriving maritime economy. And that's one that can compete with anybody here in the U.S. and abroad. All right. Thanks, everybody.